The phone shattered the silence at 2:47 a.m. Kang Min-Jun's hand moved before his eyes opened, muscle memory from years of midnight emergencies guiding his fingers to the secure mobile on his nightstand. The number glowed unfamiliar on the screen, but it was programmed into his system. That meant someone with access, someone who'd been vetted, however briefly. He answered without speaking, a habit that had saved his life more than once. "Mr. Kang?" The voice was small, terrified, with that particular hybrid accent he'd heard before, Nigerian inflection wrapped around Korean phonetics. "Please sir. Mama won't wake up. She's making scary sounds and her face is wrong." Min-Jun was already moving, pulling on trousers with one hand while keeping the phone pressed to his ear. "Where are you?" "Home." "The apartment. You gave Mama a card with a number. She said only for emergencies." The child's voice cracked. "This is an emergency, right? Please, she won't breathe right. Address. Now." Min-Jun's voice cut through the child's rising panic like a blade. "Building 14, Itiwandong 3GA. The one with the broken sign. 4th floor, no elevator works." He was already speed dialing with his other phone. "Stay on the line. Don't hang up. What's your name?" "Amara. Amara Okafor. I'm 7 3/4. "Amara, I'm sending help. They'll be there in 8 minutes. Can you tell me what happened to your mother?" "She was eating the rice cakes from the street vendor. She started coughing really bad and then she fell down and now she won't answer me." The girl's voice climbed higher. "Her face is purple, Mr. Kang." "Is purple bad?" "Listen to me very carefully." Min-Jun's second call connected. "Taesung. Building 14, Itiwandong 3GA, 4th floor. Woman choking, child alone. Get Dr. Song and meet me there. 6 minutes." On it came the gruff response before the line went dead. Min-Jun grabbed his keys, still holding the phone to his ear. "Amara, I need you to be very brave. Can you do that?" "Yes sir." "Good. Turn your mother on her side." "Do you know what side means?" "Like sleeping on my side?" "Exactly like that. Turn her so she's lying on her side, not on her back." "Can you do that?" He heard grunting, the sound of small hands struggling with dead weight. "She's too heavy." "That's okay. You tried. Now I need you to open the door, the front door to your apartment. Unlock it completely. My friends are coming to help, and they need to get in fast. Mama says never open the door at night." "Your mama is right. But tonight is different. Tonight, you called me, and I'm sending doctors. You trust me, don't you?" A pause. "Then, Mama said you were kind when we worked at your warehouse. She said you were the only boss who asked her name." Something twisted in Min-Jun's chest, something he thought he'd buried 5 years ago. He pushed it down. "Open the door, Amara. Help is coming." The drive through Seoul's empty streets took 5 minutes. Min-Jun's black Genesis G90 moved through the city like a shark through dark water, silent, predatory, inevitable. He'd stopped questioning these impulses years ago, these moments when his carefully constructed walls cracked just enough to let someone through. The employee card he gave to temporary workers at his warehouses was supposed to be for labor disputes or pay issues. It wasn't supposed to be used for this. But the children didn't follow the rules. They only followed instinct. Building 14 looked worse at night. Graffiti crawled up its sides like disease, and half the windows showed no light behind them, either abandoned or occupied by people who'd learned to live in darkness. This was where Seoul kept its invisible people, the ones who cleaned the hotels and factories, who worked through the night so the city could shine during the day. Min-Jun took the stairs 3 at a time. Behind him, he heard the heavy footfalls of young Taesung, his head of security, and the more measured pace of Dr. Song carrying his medical bag. The door to apartment 404 stood open. Inside, a small girl with her hair in twisted braids stood pressed against the wall, her eyes huge in her face. She wore an oversized t-shirt that hung to her knees, and her feet were bare. When she saw Min-Jun, something like relief flooded her features. "You came," she whispered. On the floor between the kitchenette and the single sleeping area, a woman lay on her side. Her lips had a bluish tinge, and her breathing came in horrible, wet gasps. Her eyes were half open but unfocused. Dr. Song was already on his knees beside her, hands moving with practiced efficiency. "Airway obstruction." "Partially, thank God." "How long?" "Maybe 10 minutes?" Amara's voice was tiny. "I didn't have a clock." "I'm sorry." "You did exactly right," Dr. Song said, his voice gentle even as his hands performed a modified Heimlich maneuver. "Calling for help was the smartest thing you could do." A piece of rice cake dislodged with a sickening sound. The woman gasped, and color began to return to her face. Dr. Song immediately began checking her vitals. Min-Jun crouched beside Amara. Up close, he could see she'd been crying, but silently, the kind of crying children learned when making noise brought danger. "What's your mother's name?" "Adana. But everyone calls her Anna." "She's from Nigeria. We came here when I was 4. "And your father?" Amara's face closed down. "Gone. It's just us." Dr. Song looked up. "She needs 4 fluids, observation. She's severely malnourished and dehydrated. The choking incident was just the trigger, her system is shutting down from exhaustion and malnutrition." Min-Jun surveyed the apartment properly now. It was clean despite its poverty, someone had tried to make it home. Children's drawings were taped to the wall. A small collection of books stood stacked in the corner, library stamps visible on their spines. On the single hot plate, a pot of rice sat cold and congealed. This woman was drowning, and she'd been drowning for a long time. "Hospital?" Taesung asked. Min-Jun shook his head. "No papers. They'd call immigration before they'd finish the 4. He made a decision that he knew would complicate everything. "Take them to Baekdu." Taesung's eyebrows rose fractionally, the most surprising thing the stoic man ever showed. "Boss. I know what I said. Do it anyway. Before we continue, can I ask you a question? Where in the world are you watching from? Comment below because we would love to know how far these stories travel, and hit that subscribe button because there are new stories you do not want to miss." Dr. Song was already preparing Anna for transport, checking her airway again, stabilizing her neck. "She'll need at least 48 hours of medical observation. Maybe more." "She'll have it." Min-Jun turned to Amara. "Pack a bag. Bring whatever matters to you. You and your mother are coming with me." "Where?" "Somewhere safe. Mama says nowhere is safe for people like us." "Your mama is usually right. But tonight, she's wrong." 20 minutes later, they were gliding through Seoul's pre-dawn streets towards Songbuk-dong, where old money and new power lived behind walls that made the rest of the city's security look like suggestions. Anna was secured in the back seat, Dr. Song monitoring her vitals, while Amara sat beside Min-Jun in the front, clutching a worn backpack and a small carved wooden elephant. "That's pretty," Min-Jun said, nodding at the elephant. "My grandmother gave it to me in Nigeria, before we left. She said elephants never forget their family." Amara's fingers traced the worn wood. "I try not to forget either, but sometimes I can't remember her face anymore." "Is that bad?" "No. Memory is complicated." "Do you have family, Mr. Kang?" The question landed like a physical blow. Min-Jun's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "I did. Once." "What happened?" "They went somewhere I couldn't follow." Amara considered this with the seriousness only children possess. "Like heaven?" "Something like that." They drove in silence until the walls of Baekdu Estate rose before them, traditional Korean stonework topped with modern security that most people never noticed. The gates opened soundlessly, responding to the vehicle's signature. Inside, traditional Hanok architecture blended with contemporary design, creating something that belonged to no single era but commanded respect from all of them. Ajuma Lee met them at the entrance, her face betraying nothing despite the unusual hour and unexpected guests. She'd worked for Min-Jun long enough to know that questions could wait. "Prepare the East guest suite," Min-Jun said. "And the adjoining room. Dr. Song will need space to work." "Of course, Sajangnam." Her eyes flickered to Amara, and something softened there. "The child? I need food. Something gentle. Rice porridge, maybe some fruit. I'll prepare it myself." They settled Anna in the guest suite, where Dr. Song immediately set up a makeshift medical station. The four went in smoothly, and color continued to return to Anna's face, though she remained unconscious. Exhaustion had claimed her as thoroughly as the choking had. Min-Jun showed Amara to the adjoining room. It was simple but comfortable, traditional Korean bedding on a low platform, a small desk by the window, closet doors that slid silently. After months in a single room with her mother, this must have seemed vast. "You can sleep here," he said. "Your mother is right next door, and Dr. Song will watch her all night." Amara set her backpack down carefully, as if afraid to disturb anything. "This is your house?" "Yes. It's very quiet. I live alone." "That sounds lonely." Min-Jun had no answer for that, because she was right. Instead, he said, "Ajuma Lee is bringing food. Eat, rest. Tomorrow we'll talk about what happens next." But Amara's hand shot out, grabbing his sleeve. "You won't make us leave, will you? Not while Mama is sick." He looked down at her, this small person who'd kept her head during a crisis, who'd called for help instead of panicking, who was trying so hard to be brave. Something in his chest that had been frozen for 5 years cracked just slightly. "No. Not while your mother is sick. Promise?" "I promise." Amara released his sleeve. "Okay. I believe you." She shouldn't have. Min-Jun was a man who dealt in logistics and leverage, in pressure and power. He'd built an empire on understanding what people wanted and making sure they understood what it would cost them. Kindness was expensive, and he'd learned to be careful about where he spent it. But as he left Amara eating rice porridge under Ajuma Lee's watchful eye, as he passed the room where Anna lay connected to machines that beeped softly in the darkness, he realized he'd just made a promise he intended to keep. And that terrified him more than any business deal ever had. The sun rose over Seoul, painting the city in shades of gold and gray. Min-Jun stood in his study, looking out over the estate's inner courtyard where morning light touched the carefully maintained garden. He hadn't slept. Sleep was for people who didn't have complications. Behind him, Taesung cleared his throat. "The woman. Anna Okafor. I pulled her file from the warehouse records. And? 30 years old. Entered Korea on a student visa 6 years ago, Language Institute. My visa expired 4 years ago. She's been working under the table since, factory work, cleaning jobs, whatever she can find. The girl, Amara, was born in Lagos. Nigerian passport, no Korean documentation. Father? Unknown. No record of marriage, no paternity documentation." Min-Jun turned from the window. "What else?" "She's clean. No criminal record, not even a parking ticket. She works, she takes care of her kid, she's invisible." Taesung paused. "The kind of invisible that costs everything. Why did I give her an emergency card? You don't remember? I give out a lot of cards." Taesung consulted his tablet. "Last year. Textile warehouse in Incheon. She was working the night shift, stopping a new worker from getting caught in the machinery. Saved the kid's arm, maybe his life. You were doing a site inspection, saw the whole thing. Give her a card on the spot." The memory surfaced slowly, a woman moving fast, pulling a drowsy teenager back from the industrial looms. The gratitude in the boy's eyes. The way she'd refused any reward, just asked that the boy be given some training so he'd know to be more careful. "She asked me to take care of someone else," Min-Jun said slowly. "Not herself. People like that are rare, boss. People like that get destroyed." Yeah. They do. Min-Jun looked back at the garden, where morning dew caught the light like scattered diamonds. How long can we keep them here without it becoming a problem? For you? As long as you want. You own enough of Seoul that immigration won't ask questions. For them? Taesung shrugged. Depends on what you want to do. Send them away quietly, get them papers, or what? Or let them stay. Really stay. The suggestion hung in the air between them. Taesung had been with Min-Jun for 15 years, since before the accident, before the careful construction of walls and isolation. He was one of 3 people who knew what Min-Jun had lost, and how thoroughly that loss had changed him. I don't do that anymore, Min-Jun said quietly. I don't let people in. No, you don't. But you brought them here. Not to a hospital, not to a safe house. Here. To your home. It was practical. Safest option. Boss, with respect, you haven't brought anyone to this house in 5 years except staff and business associates. You don't do this. You definitely don't do this for strangers. She saved someone's life. I'm returning the favor. Keep telling yourself that. Taesung left, and Min-Jun was alone with the morning and his thoughts. The problem was that Taesung was right. This wasn't practical. This was emotional, and Min-Jun had spent 5 years building a life where emotions were carefully controlled, channeled into business decisions and strategic thinking. Emotions got people killed. He'd learned that lesson in Blood and Twisted Metal. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Ajama Lee stood in the doorway. The woman is awake, said Jangnam. She's asking for her daughter. Min-Jun found Anna sitting up in bed, fur still attached to her arm, eyes wide with panic. Amara sat beside her, holding her mother's hand. Where are we? Anna's voice was hoarse, her English carrying that musical Nigerian accent. Amara, what happened? You were choking, Mama. I called Mr. Kang like you said to do for emergencies. He came with doctors. Anna's eyes found Min-Jun in the doorway. Recognition flickered, she knew him, at least by sight. Mr. Kang. From the warehouse. Ms. Okafor. He stepped into the room, maintaining a careful distance. You had a severe choking episode. My physician, Dr. Song, treated you. You've been unconscious for about 6 hours. Where are we? My home, Baekdu Estate in Songbukdong. Her eyes widened further. We can't be here. I can't afford, immigration will. Stop. His voice cut through her rising panic. You're safe. Both of you. No one is calling immigration. Why would you help us? We're nothing to you. You're a former employee who saved someone's life. Your daughter used the emergency contact I provided. That makes you my responsibility. Anna's hand tightened on Amara's. I appreciate what you've done, truly, but we should go. We'll manage. We always do. Dr. Song says you need at least 2 more days of medical observation. You're severely malnourished and dehydrated. Your body is shutting down. I'm fine. You nearly died on your kitchen floor while your 7-year-old daughter watched. You're not fine. The words landed hard. Anna's face crumpled for just a moment before she regained control. We'll be more careful. Thank you for your help, but where will you go? Min-Jun kept his voice level. Your apartment's lease was up 2 weeks ago according to the notices I saw. You have no savings, no legal status, and no support system. Where exactly will you take your daughter? Anna had no answer. Her silence was damning. I'm proposing an alternative, Min-Jun continued. You stay here while you recover. Both of you. Once you're healthy, we'll discuss next steps. I can't pay you. I'm not asking you to. Then what are you asking? It was a fair question, and Min-Jun wasn't entirely sure he knew the answer. Nothing. Yet. Consider this hospitality. Men like you don't offer hospitality without conditions. Men like me? Rich. Powerful. The kind who can make phone calls and have doctors appear in the middle of the night. Anna's eyes were sharp despite her exhaustion. What do you want from us, Mr. Kang? What did he want? That was the question that had haunted him since 2:47 a.m. The honest answer, the one he couldn't quite articulate, was that Amara's voice on the phone had sounded like Jiwoo's voice, his daughter's voice, and for the first time in 5 years he'd acted on instinct instead of calculation. But he couldn't say that. So instead he said, I want you to rest. I want your daughter to be safe. Everything else can wait. Anna studied him for a long moment. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied something, because she nodded slowly. 2 days. Then we talk about what comes next. Agreed. He left them there, mother and daughter holding hands, and felt the weight of his promise settling onto his shoulders. 2 days. It wasn't much time to figure out what he was doing, why he was doing it, or what would happen when those 2 days were up. But it was a start. The next 48 hours established a routine that felt simultaneously strange and natural. Anna remained in the guest suite, her strength slowly returning under Dr. Song's care. Amara explored the estate with the fearless curiosity of childhood, chattering to Ajuma Lee in broken Korean and better English, asking questions about everything from the koi in the courtyard pond to why Min-Jun lived in such a big house all alone. Because I like quiet, he'd answered that first evening, when Amara had found him in his study. Mama says too much quiet makes you sad, Amara had responded, then wandered off to examine his bookshelf, leaving Min-Jun alone with that observation. On the second evening, Anna was strong enough to leave the bed. Ajuma Lee had found clothes that fit, simple but quality, better than anything Anna had owned in years. She moved through the house slowly, still weak, taking in the traditional architecture mixed with modern luxury. Min-Jun found her in the library, running her fingers along the spines of books. She was startled when she noticed him. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to intrude. You're a guest. This is available to you. She pulled out a book, Nigerian folk tales, in English and Igbo. You have books in Igbo. I have books in many languages. My business requires cultural understanding. What business is that, exactly? Import-export. Logistics. Facilitation. Anna's expression suggested she knew those were euphemisms, but she didn't push. Instead she said, Amara likes it here. Too much. That's a problem? We can't stay. You know that. Your 2 days aren't up. Mr. Kang. Anna set the book down carefully. I appreciate everything you've done. Truly. But kindness always has a price, and I can't afford to owe a man like you. A man like me. I've worked in Seoul for 6 years. I know how power works here. Nothing is free, especially not for people like me, and yet you're here. Because my daughter called you, and you answered. Because I had no choice. Anna's voice was steady, but Min-Jun could hear the fear underneath. But now I'm better, and we need to leave before the debt becomes too large to pay. What if there is no debt? There's always a debt. Min-Jun considered his next words carefully. You're right. I don't do things without reason. But my reason isn't what you think. Then what is it? He gestured to the chairs by the window. After a moment, Anna sat. Min-Jun took the chair opposite, maintaining careful distance. 5 years ago, he began, I had a family. A wife, Seo-Yun. A daughter, Ji-woo. She was 3. Anna's expression shifted. Had? Car accident. They were driving to meet me for dinner. A drunk driver crossed the center line on Olympic Expressway. Min-Jun's voice remained level through years of practice. They died on impact. The driver walked away with bruises. I'm so sorry. The accident was meant for me. The drunk driver was hired by a business rival. He was supposed to hit my car, but I was late that day. 10 minutes late. So he hit them instead. Understanding dawned in Anna's eyes. And you've been alone since? Yes. By choice. It's safer that way. For everyone. Then why help us? Because when Amara called, she sounded like Jiwoo. And I realized I'd been living like a dead man for 5 years. Min-Jun met Anna's gaze directly. I'm not asking you to be my family. I'm not asking for anything except to help you get stable. Call it penance, if you want. Call it sentiment. Call it whatever makes you feel safe. Nothing makes me feel safe, Mr. Kang. Not anymore. Then we have that in common. They sat in silence as the evening light faded from the windows. Finally, Anna said, 1 week. We'll stay 1 week while I figure out what to do next. But then we leave, and we're even. Agreed. It was a lie, and they both knew it. There was no even, no clean break. The moment Anna and Amara had crossed the threshold of Baekdu estate, they'd become entangled in Min-Jun's world. The only question was how tightly those threads would wind before someone got hurt. But for now, for this moment, they could pretend that 1 week would be enough. The week passed faster than Min-Jun expected. Anna's strength returned, and with it, her natural competence. She helped Ajuma Lee in the kitchen despite protests, teaching her Nigerian recipes that filled the house with unfamiliar, wonderful smells. She read to Amara in the evenings, switching between English, Igbo, and halting Korean, her voice carrying through the quiet halls. Min-Jun found himself listening, working in his study with the door cracked open just enough to hear the cadence of her reading. It had been so long since his home held voices, laughter, life. On the 5th day, everything changed. Min-Jun was in a meeting with Taesung, reviewing security protocols, when his phone buzzed with an alert. Perimeter breach. Not an intruder, the system would have alerted differently. This was someone with legitimate access, someone who'd been cleared before. Who is it? He asked Taesung, who was already pulling up the security feed. Taesung's face went carefully blank. Choi So-hyun. Min-Jun cursed softly. So-hyun was a former associate, someone who'd split from his organization 3 years ago when she decided his approach was too conservative. She ran her own operations now, riskier, more violent, more profitable in the short term. They maintained a careful détente, but her showing up unannounced was never good news. Where's Anna and Amara? Courtyard. The girl is feeding the koi. Keep them there. Don't let them inside until So-hyun leaves. Min-Jun met So-hyun at the entrance. She was impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, her hair swept back in a severe bun, her smile sharp as a blade. Min-Jun SSI. It's been too long. So-hyun. This is unexpected. I was in the neighborhood, heard interesting rumors. She glided past him into the entrance hall, her eyes taking in everything. You've redecorated. What do you want? So direct. I always appreciated that about you. So-hyun turned, her expression calculating. I heard you took in strays. A woman and child. Nigerian, if my sources are correct. Min-Jun's blood went cold. Your sources are misinformed. Really? Because I have it on good authority that you personally extracted them from an apartment in Itaewon at 3 in the morning. Very unlike you, Min-Jun SSI. You don't do rescue missions anymore, not since, well. Not since the accident. Get to the point. The point is that you've made yourself vulnerable. And in our world, vulnerability is dangerous. So-hyun's smile widened. I'm concerned for you. As an old friend. We're not friends. No. We're not. But we used to be partners, and I still have some fondness for you. So I'm giving you advice, free of charge, send them away. Whatever impulse made you bring them here, ignore it. People like us don't have families, Min-Jun. We gave up that right when we chose this life. I haven't chosen anything except to help someone in need. And now everyone knows it. Do you understand what that means? Your enemies, and you have plenty, now know there are people in this house you care about. That makes them targets. Through the window, Min-Jun could see Amara crouching by the koi pond, her small hand trailing in the water while Anna watched nearby. Something protective and fierce rose in his chest. "They're under my protection." "Your protection only matters if people fear you. And right now, you look soft." So-hyun stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I'm not your enemy, not yet. But others will see this as a weakness. They'll test you. And when they do, that woman and her child will be in the crossfire. Then I'll handle it. Will you? Or will you hesitate, like you hesitated that night 5 years ago? Will you be 10 minutes late again?" The words hit like a physical blow. Min-Jun's hand shot out, gripping So-hyun's arm hard enough to bruise. "Get out." She didn't flinch. "I'm trying to save your life, you fool. Send them away, or everyone you care about will die." Again. He released her, his control hanging by a thread. "Taesung will show you out." So-hyun smoothed her sleeve, her expression almost pitying. "You always were too sentimental. It's going to kill you someday." She left, and Min-Jun stood in the entrance hall, his heart hammering against his ribs. So-hyun was right about one thing: he'd made Anna and Amara visible. In his world, visibility meant vulnerability, but sending them away, back to that crumbling apartment, back to starvation and fear, that wasn't an option either. He found Anna in the courtyard, watching Amara play. She looked up when he approached, and whatever she saw in his face made her expression tighten. "Who was that woman?" "Former business associate. She looked at me like I was a problem to be solved." "She sees everything that way." Anna turned fully toward him. "Mr. Kang, what kind of business are you really in?" It was the question she'd been too polite or too cautious to ask before. Min-Jun could lie, deflect, and maintain careful fiction. But looking at Anna's direct gaze, he found he didn't want to. "Import-export, like I said. But not the legal kind. I move things people don't want moved, facilitate transactions people don't want facilitated, maintain order in systems that aren't supposed to exist." He kept his voice low. "I'm not a good man, Ms. Okafor. I'm a necessary one." "Are we in danger? Is Amara in danger?" "Not while you're here. This estate is the safest place in Seoul." "But outside these walls?" Min-Jun didn't answer, which was answer enough. Anna wrapped her arms around herself despite the warm afternoon. "We should leave. Tonight. Before this becomes more complicated." "Where will you go?" "I'll figure something out. I always do." "Your week isn't up." The week was a fantasy. We both knew that. Anna's voice was quiet but firm. "Thank you for everything, truly. But I won't let my daughter become collateral in whatever game that woman was playing." "You think leaving will make you safer?" "So-hyun knows about you now. Others will too. Out there, you're vulnerable. Here, you're protected. Here, we're trapped." "Yes," Min-Jun agreed. "You are. But being alive and trapped is better than being free and dead." The brutal honesty seemed to surprise her. Anna glanced at Amara, who was laughing as koi fish nibbled at her fingers. "What are you really offering, Mr. Kang?" "Sanctuary. For as long as you need it. Nothing is free." "No. But maybe the price isn't what you think." Min-Jun chose his words carefully. "Stay. Let me help you get legal documentation, real papers. Let me help Amara get into a good school. Let me give you the stability you've been fighting for since you came to Korea." "In exchange for what?" "Your presence. Your daughter's laughter. The sound of voices in this house again." He met her eyes. "I'm not asking you to be my family. I'm asking if we can both survive this together." Anna was quiet for a long moment, watching her daughter. Finally, she said, "1 month. We stay 1 month while you arrange papers and I figure out what legitimate work I can do." "But I work, Mr. Kang. I contribute. I'm not in anyone's charity case." "You'll work for your keep." I can use a cultural consultant for my African operations. Someone who understands Lagos markets and knows how to negotiate in multiple languages. You're offering me a job in your criminal enterprise? I'm offering you a job in my import business. What you choose to know about the details is up to you. It was a compromise, and they both knew it was temporary. But it was also hope, something neither of them had experienced in a very long time. 1 month, Anna repeated. 1 month, Min-Jun agreed. But as Amara ran over to show them a particularly beautiful koi, her excitement infectious, her trust absolute, Min-Jun realized that 1 month would never be enough. He'd let them in, and now the walls he'd spent 5 years building were crumbling faster than he could repair them. The question wasn't whether he'd get hurt. The question was whether he could keep them safe long enough for it to matter. The answer came sooner than expected. 3 days later, at 11 p.m., the perimeter alarm shrieked to life. Min-Jun was in his study when the alerts flooded his phone. Multiple breach points. Armed intruders. Professional operation. He was moving before conscious thought, muscle memory from years of violence taking over. Taesung, he barked into his phone. 6 hostiles, maybe more. They cut the secondary power grid. Boss, this is coordinated. Get Anna and Amara to the safe room. Now. Min-Jun grabbed the pistol from his desk drawer and headed toward the guest wing. Behind him, he could hear Taesung's team mobilizing, the quiet efficiency of trained security personnel moving into defensive positions. He found Anna already up, clutching Amara, who was crying silently. The child had learned not to make noise when danger came, a skill no 7-year-old should have to master. What's happening? Anna's voice was steady, but Min-Jun could see the fear in her eyes. Someone's testing our defenses. Come with me. He led them through the house to a hidden door in the library. Behind it, stairs descended to a reinforced safe room, steel walls, independent air supply, communications equipment. Min-Jun had built it after the accident, after he'd learned how quickly safety could become an illusion. You'll be safe here, he said, ushering them inside. Don't open this door for anyone except me or Taesung. You understand? Where are you going? Amara asked, her voice small. To end this. Anna grabbed his arm. Don't get killed protecting us. I don't plan to. He sealed the door and returned to the surface. Outside, he could hear gunfire, short controlled bursts, his team returning fire. These weren't amateurs. Someone had sent professionals. Min-Jun found Taesung coordinating the defense from the central security room. Monitors showed figures in tactical gear moving through the grounds, testing perimeters, looking for weak points. Who sent them? Min-Jun asked. Does it matter? Could be So-hyun, could be any of a dozen others. You made yourself a target when you brought those 2 here. Then we send a message. Min-Jun had spent 5 years avoiding violence, building his empire on information and leverage rather than force. But he'd never forgotten how to fight, and tonight someone needed to remember why people feared Kang Min-Jun. The next 20 minutes were brutal and efficient. Min-Jun's team was better trained, better positioned, and fighting on home ground. The intruders learned the hard way that Baekdu Estate's defenses weren't for show. When it was over, 4 intruders were in custody, 2 had escaped, and none of Min-Jun's team was seriously injured. The courtyard garden was torn up, several walls showed bullet holes, and the koi pond was muddied with disturbed earth. But the house stood. And more importantly, Anna and Amara were safe. Min-Jun returned to the safe room, his hand still shaking slightly from adrenaline. He knocked the all-clear pattern on the steel door. When it opened, Amara launched herself at him, wrapping small arms around his waist. You came back, she said into his shirt. I promised I would. Anna stood behind her daughter, taking in Min-Jun's torn jacket, the blood on his knuckles, not his own, the exhaustion in his eyes. This is your life. Yes. And now it's ours too. I'm sorry. Don't be. Anna's voice was surprisingly fierce. I've spent 6 years being invisible, being powerless, being afraid. At least here, someone's fighting for us. That's more than I've had in a long time. They made their way back upstairs. The house looked like a war zone, but Ajumma Lee was already organizing repairs, her expression suggesting this wasn't her first time dealing with the aftermath. Subscribe to our channel if you're enjoying this journey through Seoul's shadows, and leave a comment telling us what you think happens next. We read every single one, and subscribing is completely free. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story like this. In the days following the attack, Min-Jun made decisions that would reshape everything. He had his team trace the intruders back to their source, not So-hyun, surprisingly, but a rival organization that had seen Anna and Amara as leverage. Min-Jun's response was swift and absolute. Within 48 hours, that organization understood that Baekdu Estate's residents were untouchable. But the attack had clarified something for everyone involved. Anna and Amara couldn't leave now, not safely. They were too visible, too connected to Min-Jun. Leaving would make them targets without his protection. They were, for all practical purposes, his family now. Whether any of them were ready for that or not. 1 week after the attack, Min-Jun found Anna on the veranda overlooking the repaired courtyard. The koi pond had been restored, and new fish swam among the old survivors. "I've been thinking," Anna said without preamble. "About what you said. About surviving together. And? I think we're past the point of pretending this is temporary." She turned to face him. "Amara loves it here. She's learning Korean, she's healthy, she smiles constantly. And I'm tired of running. Tired of being scared." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying if you're serious about this, about really giving us sanctuary, about making us part of your world, then we need to make it official. Legal." Min-Jun's heart started beating faster. "Legal how?" "However it works best. Adoption for Amara, maybe. Employment papers for me that can't be questioned. Whatever structures protect us and protect you. That's a significant commitment." "Yes. But you've already made it, haven't you? The moment you answered Amara's call. The moment you brought us here. The moment you fought for us." Anna's voice was steady. "I'm just asking if you're willing to make it permanent." Min-Jun thought about the 5 years he'd spent alone, building walls, maintaining distance, living like a ghost in his own life. He thought about Jiwoo and Seo-yeon, and the guilt that had haunted him every day since their deaths. But he also thought about Amara's laughter echoing through the house, about Anna's presence making the empty spaces feel lived in again. About the way his home had become a home instead of just a building. "There's something you should know first," he said quietly. "I can never guarantee perfect safety. My world is dangerous, and being part of it means accepting that risk. Life is a risk, Mr. Kang. At least here, the odds are better. And you should know that I can't promise romance or love or any of the things people usually associate with family. I'm not capable of that anymore. I'm not asking for love. I'm asking for partnership. For commitment. For the chance to build something stable for my daughter." Anna met his eyes. "Can you give us that?" Could he? Min-Jun had spent 5 years saying no to this exact question. But standing here, watching the evening light paint the courtyard gold, he realized that maybe he'd been asking the wrong question. It wasn't about capability. It wasn't about worthiness. It was about choice. And he was choosing yes. "There's a way," he said slowly. "Marriage. Not romantic, not about love. A contract that protects both of you legally, gives you citizenship, makes Amara my legal daughter. In Korean culture, family is everything. If you're my wife, if she's my daughter, no one can touch you without going through me." Anna absorbed this. "You're proposing marriage. I'm proposing survival. Together. That's the most unromantic proposal I've ever heard. I warned you I wasn't capable of romance." To his surprise, Anna laughed, a real laugh, full of genuine amusement. "You know what? I appreciate the honesty. I've had romance. It left me pregnant and alone in a foreign country. Maybe practical is exactly what I need. You should think about it. Talk to Amara. I will, but Min-Jun? She used his given name for the first time. I think I already know what the answer will be. That night, Anna sat with Amara in the child's room, the one that had been temporary but had gradually filled with books and toys and drawings taped to the walls. Baby, I need to talk to you about something important, Anna began. Amara looked up from the Korean alphabet book Min-Jun had given her. Okay, Mama. How do you feel about staying here? Really staying? Not for a month or a week, but maybe forever? Amara's eyes went wide. Really? Can we stay? Maybe. But it would mean some changes. Mr. Kang Min-Jun, he wants to make us officially part of his family. That would mean he'd be like your father. How would you feel about that? Amara was quiet for a moment, her 7-year-old mind working through the implications. Would he read me stories every night? Probably. Would he teach me more Korean? Yes. Would he protect us from bad people? Always. Then yes. Amara smiled, that brilliant uncomplicated smile that children had before the world taught them to be afraid. I like Min-Jun. He's sad sometimes, but he's kind, and he looks at us like we matter. We do matter, baby. I know. But before, nobody else knew. Now Min-Jun knows. That's nice. Anna hugged her daughter tight, feeling tears sting her eyes. Out of the mouths of babes, as her grandmother used to say. Children saw what adults complicated. They mattered. They were seen. They were safe. Maybe that was enough to build on. The next morning, Anna found Min-Jun in the courtyard, feeding the koi fish. She'd learned this was his meditation, the way he thought through complex problems. We talked, she said without preamble. Amara and I. Min-Jun's hand stilled over the water. And? She said yes. She likes you. She trusts you. She wants to stay. And you? I'm terrified, Anna admitted. But I'm also practical. You're offering us something I could never give her on my own: safety, education, a future. You're offering us a chance. So that's a yes? That's a yes. With conditions. Of course there are conditions. Anna smiled slightly. I need to know this is real. That you're committed to Amara's well-being, not just using us to fill some void. Fair. And I need autonomy. I'm your wife on paper, your partner in building this life, but I'm still myself. I make my own choices, have my own voice. I wouldn't want it any other way. And Amara gets both cultures. Korean and Nigerian. She doesn't have to choose. She shouldn't have to choose. She gets to be everything she is. Anna extended her hand. Then we have a deal, Kang Min-Jun. He took her hand, his grip firm and warm. We have a deal, Adana Okafor. They stood there in the morning light, two people who'd been running from different things, who'd found safety in the last place. It wasn't love, not yet. It wasn't even romance. But it was honest. It was real. And maybe that was enough to start with. The wedding, when it happened 3 weeks later, was simple. A judge Min-Jun knew, a handful of witnesses, Taesung and Ajuma Lee standing as supporters. Amara wore a new dress that combined Korean and Nigerian patterns, looking radiant. Anna wore white, not a wedding dress, but a simple elegant suit. She looked at Min-Jun not with love but with something perhaps more valuable: respect, trust, and determination. When the judge pronounced them married, when papers were signed that made Amara legally Min-Jun's daughter, something shifted in the universe. The empty house filled with purpose. The walls that had been protected became the foundation. They had dinner that night as a family, jollof rice and kimchi side by side on the table, Amara chattering about the ceremony, Ajuma Lee beaming with quiet joy. Min-Jun looked around the table and felt something unfamiliar: contentment. Not happiness, that was still too far, too dangerous to hope for. But contentment. The sense that maybe, just maybe, he'd done something right. What are you thinking about? Anna asked quietly. That this house hasn't been a home in 5 years. And now it is again. Scared? Terrified. Good. Me too. Anna raised her glass. To be terrified together. To survive, Min-Jun countered. To family, Amara chimed in, not quite understanding but feeling the weight of the moment. They drank, juice for Amara, wine for the adults, and the evening stretched into night. Outside, Seoul glittered with a million lights. Inside, 3 people who'd been alone had found each other. It wasn't a fairy tale. There would be challenges ahead, adjusting to living together, navigating Min-Jun's dangerous world, building trust that went deeper than convenience. But for tonight, it was enough. 6 months later, the house had completely transformed. Amara attended an elite international school, fluent in Korean and English, learning her mother's Igbo and evening lessons. Anna ran the African division of Min-Jun's legitimate import business, and it was legitimate now, carefully separated from his other operations. Min-Jun himself had started the slow process of going legal, using his networks and resources to build something that could stand daylight. It would take years, maybe decades, but for the first time since the accident, he was building towards something instead of just maintaining control. They'd developed rhythms as a family. Breakfast together every morning. Amara's homework was checked by whichever parent was available. Weekend trips to museums and parks. Min-Jun was constantly surprised by how much of Seoul he'd never seen, how much life he'd missed by staying in the shadows. Anna was right, it wasn't love, not in the traditional sense. But it was partnership, and partnership was proving to be something more valuable. They respected each other, supported each other, built something together that neither could have built alone. And occasionally, in unguarded moments, Min-Jun would catch Anna laughing at something Amara said, or Anna would see him teaching their daughter taekwondo with infinite patience, and something warm would flicker between them. Not love yet. But possibility. One evening, after Amara was asleep, Min-Jun found Anna on the veranda where they'd had their first serious conversation about staying. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For taking a chance, for trusting me with your daughter. For reminding me that life is for living, not just surviving. Anna smiled. You saved our lives. Multiple times. I think we're even. I don't think we'll ever be even. I think we'll just keep saving each other. That sounds exhausting. It does, doesn't it? They stood in comfortable silence, watching the koi swim lazy circles in the pond. The garden had fully recovered from the attack, and now it was more beautiful than before. Something about surviving violence together made everything more precious. Min-Jun? Anna said eventually. Yes, I think I'm happy. Is that allowed? He considered this. I think it might be. Good. Because I am. Happy, I mean. Not deliriously, not without worry. But genuinely, solidly happy. So am I. It was the truth. For the first time in 5 years, Kang Min-Jun was happy. Not because he'd forgotten Seo-yeon and Ji-woo, he never would. But because he'd learned that honoring their memory didn't mean dying with them. It meant living. Fully, messily, imperfectly living. And he was finally ready to do that. Inside, Amara stirred in her sleep, calling out for her mama. Anna went to her, and Min-Jun followed, both of them standing in the doorway of their daughter's room, their daughter, not by blood but by choice, watching her settle back into peaceful dreams. We did good, Anna whispered. We did, Min-Jun agreed. And in that moment, in that simple acknowledgement, something clicked into place. They weren't just surviving anymore. They weren't just partners in a practical arrangement. They were a family. Chosen, built, forged in crisis and sealed in commitment. It was enough. More than enough. It was everything. If you've made it this far in our story, thank you for joining us on this journey through Seoul's shadows and into the light. Please hit that like button, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe. It's completely free and helps us bring you more stories like this one. The years that followed weren't perfect. There were challenges, Min-Jun's past occasionally surfacing, Anna struggling with the isolation that came with being married to someone powerful, Amara navigating her dual heritage in a country that didn't always know what to do with people like her, but they faced everything together. When business rivals tested Min-Jun, Anna stood beside him. When Anna felt lost between cultures, Min-Jun reminded her that she didn't have to choose, she could be everything she was. When Amara faced discrimination at school, they both showed up to every meeting, a united front that made it clear their daughter was protected, valued, and loved. Love. The word they'd both been so careful to avoid had crept in anyway, slowly and inevitably. It wasn't the passionate romance of movies, it was quieter, steadier, built on respect and partnership and thousands of small moments of choosing each other. It was the way Min-Jun learned to cook Nigerian food so Anna wouldn't feel so far from home. The way Anna learned Korean business protocols to support Min-Jun's transformation into legitimacy. The way they both showed up for Amara, every single day, no matter what else demanded their attention. It was family. Real, complicated, imperfect family. And it was worth every moment of fear, every challenge, every sacrifice. On Amara's 10th birthday, they threw a party that combined Korean and Nigerian traditions, doll meets Nigerian celebration, with foods from both cultures, guests from every part of their lives, and Amara glowing with the confidence of a child who knew she belonged. As Min-Jun watched his daughter, their daughter, laughing with friends, he felt Anna slip her hand into his. "Happy?" she asked. "Beyond measure," he replied. And he meant it. The man who'd lived in isolation for 5 years, who'd thought he'd never feel anything again, had found not just happiness but joy. The house that had been empty was full. The life that had existed was living. All because a 7-year-old girl had called for help, and he'd answered. Let me know where you are watching this from in the comments below. Please subscribe, like, and comment.